It's with great pleasure that I introduce a CERT instructor, member, and a Red Cross, very active Red Cross member, Diana Graham. Diana, take it away.
Well, thank you very much for being here, and I hope that you can hear me okay. Is this all right? Duncan, can you say it? Oh, good. Okay. I have been a Red Cross volunteer for the last 10 years and primarily doing disaster preparedness instruction. My house burned down in the Tunnel or Oakland fire, depending on how you call it, 29 years ago. And so I'm very interested in having everybody be prepared. The time to make a plan is not during the disaster. It doesn't work out well, as we found, because we had no plan when the fire happened. And we're very fortunate that we're not dead. At any rate, I would like, as Duncan said, to have you mute your devices. We will ask you to put any questions in the chat. Julie is going to be monitoring the chat, and at the end of this presentation, she'll ask your questions for you. So to get started, oh well, this is interesting. Here I thought I had it all done ready. All right. So what's the Red Cross? It's the largest non-profit humanitarian organization in the world, and it is the Red Cross and the Red Crescent and a number of other organizations, and we're not a government agency. Our goal is to relieve suffering and to respond to disasters to help people. What do? We have several branches, and you may not know about some of them. The original Red Cross was providing service to the armed forces, which we still do. We provide support to military families when things come up during emergencies, and connect people with their loved ones when necessary. International services, the American Red Cross does not respond internationally, but does have a subset of the American Red Cross that does respond to international disasters. Blood services, I'm sure you're familiar with this. This provides life-saving blood to people who need it. We collect blood and distribute it to those who need it. Youth services, we have a very active youth group, services trying to get kids involved in the Red Cross so they understand how important it is to serve others. Come on. Health and safety, some of you may have taken swimming instruction from the Red Cross in the past. I have got my lifeguard certificate and my teaching swimming certificate from the Red Cross. We also do CPR instruction, which is very important. And the thing you hear about most nowadays in California is disaster cycle services. This is where we set up shelters, we respond to house fires, we do various things to help people when they're in a disaster. And we've been very, 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 very busy this year and the last few years. Now, because you can't respond, I'm going to go through this myself. What emergency situations can happen in our area? Well, we know that earthquakes can. We know that pandemics can. And then wildfires and home fires. The thing that the Red Cross responds to most is house fires. We go and try and get people situated in other housing. We try and help them recover. This is something that if the fire department calls us, we come middle of the night, middle of the day, whenever. So we'll talk about each of these individually. So what I want you to do is get a kit, make a plan, and be informed. Actually, what I want you to do is make a plan. Then you'll know what you need in your kit, and you'll know what kind of information you'll need, so you'll be okay during the disaster. But we'll talk about the kits first. There are lots of lists of what you should put in your kit. Julie sent out to everybody some handouts and a link to our website, which is the Northern California Coastal Region website, so it's specific to this area, and they have lists. But the most important thing for you to do is to sit down and think, what do I need? And it's been very interesting having to think about my go bag and adding things to my go bag, taking things out of my go bag, putting things in my car, all these things, but you have to think, and that's the hardest part. So we want you to have 1 gallon per day per person of water per person per day for 3 days. Now this is that's why these water drums are so great, because you can do that and have it all established at your house and know that you're going to have water in case you need it. Food, non-perishable, canned, dried, heater meals, whatever you like. If you have cans, make sure you have a can opener. Opening your cans with a knife is not much fun. Medication. It's very important to have enough medication to tide you over until you can get refills. So we recommend 30 days. Also, I recommend that you put a list of your medications in your wallet and carry it with you everywhere. Because if you're not home and can't get your go bag and don't have your medication and you go to the Red Cross shelter, the Red Cross pharmacist can help you if you have a list of the medications you're taking and the dosages. You want a first aid kit. Definitely want a flashlight. I think 1 flashlight's not enough. You want to keep the batteries outside of the flashlight, but put them all in a bag together so you can put the batteries in when you need to. A flashlight's been described as a place to keep your dead batteries. Battery-powered crank radio. I think everybody should have at least one of these, because you need to have information. And if you're not in a place, your normal place, these are solar-powered, crank-powered. You can plug them in. They're really important. By the way, you don't have to write any of this stuff down, because all this information is in the stuff that we sent you already today, or on the website that I sent the link for. External battery pack for your phone. You need a Swiss Army knife or a multi-purpose tool. You know, toiletries, sanitation supplies. It's nice to have a blanket, change of clothes. You need your mask and gloves nowadays. Cash and coins, because you may have to. If we have no electricity, we have no credit cards. We have no. And important papers. Now you can put your important papers in the cloud. You can scan them in. You can put them on a flash drive. I dithered about this for a long time, and then it took me about 3 hours to do it over a few days. So it's not a big deal. You can do that. And if you have for your go bag, you might not want to put your phone and your computer and your cords and everything in your go bag all the time because you're using them. But you can have a list of the things that you want to add if you have time before you leave. Now, we talked about important papers. These are things like birth certificates, passports, social security number cards, insurance policies. You just can have a picture of all these things. If you have a copy of your passport, you can get a new passport. If you just have your driver's license and you're in another country and you don't have a copy of your passport, they'll give you a temporary one, but it's much better to have a copy of your passport. All these other things that you want. Photos of belongings. You should video your house probably once a year and put the video someplace where you can get it back for the insurance company. Open the drawers and take videos of what's in the drawers. Current digital photos of loved ones and pets. This is so that you can identify or show that your pet, that the pet they found is your pet. You can do searches for your family members if you can't find them and have pictures of them. And once again, we've got lists of allergies, medications, allergies, and of course, medical equipment. If you need to take your medical equipment, you should put that on the list of things to take with you when you leave. So that's a real quick go through of kits. But as I say, the most important thing you can do is sit down and think about what you want to have with you, what will make your recovery easier. That's why we want you to make copies of all of these documents, because you're thinking about what am I going to do next if everything's gone. And in my case, everything was gone because I wasn't home when the house burned down. And my husband was home, but he was leaving, just as he should be, because otherwise he would have been dead. It's very important that to realize that the most important thing that you can do if you're in a situation where you feel unsafe is just leave. It doesn't matter. All that stuff can be replaced. I lost everything, and we got too much stuff now. So the most important thing, I think, is to make a plan so everybody knows what they're going to do and everybody knows what everybody else is going to do. And that requires that you talk to your family members, and this includes children. And people tell me, the children don't want to talk about it. They say it makes them scared. Well, it's a lot better to be prepared than scared. And the video, there's a video on the website that it's 10 minutes long, and it's called Prepare for Chance. And I think everybody should watch that. It's a really fun video, and it goes through all of these things that you need to do and why you need to do them. So get together and talk and see what everybody needs to do. Some people may have access and functional needs, and you need to have people assigned to them to help them. And if they stay home alone and you're not home all the time, you need to get together with your neighbors so that they understand what your family members might need and can help them when the time comes. When our house burned down, one of my coworkers' houses burned down, he was not home. He was on a mountain bike, and he fell off his mountain bike and was lying in a pool of blood unconscious when the horsemen found him. His 12-year-old daughter was home alone, but she went out with the neighbors. So even though his house burned to the ground, everything was okay because they were both safe. Just for your house, you need 2 exits out of your home. If you have a house fire, your house is much more likely to burn down all by itself than to be in a wildfire. So this is something you need to think about really hard. Then you want 2 meeting places. You want one right outside your house so that everybody can gather in the same place. You don't want somebody running back in the house to rescue somebody that's standing in the backyard. The other one is outside your neighborhood, because in this case, you may not be able to get back home. You may have to evacuate. You may not all be together, and you want to have a place to meet. We had a fire in Moraga last year, and my neighbors evacuated, and we were fortunately in New Mexico, so we didn't have to worry about it. One of my neighbors texted me and said, "I'm so glad you made me make a plan. My husband was working, and the cell phones didn't work because the power was off, and we knew where we were going to meet." So it's very important to get this stuff done ahead of time, especially now when they turn the power off all the time. The other thing you need is an out-of-state contact. This means somebody, not in Berkeley, either out of state or way down in Southern California, because the phones don't work very well in the neighborhood of the disaster. But you may be able to text the person who's that's out of state contact, and everybody else who wants to know where you are or how you are can text the same person. This is why you need to talk to all your family members so they know what they're supposed to do, and that is indeed get a hold of the out of state contact so they can find out where you are and how you're doing. And then practice, practice, practice. If you don't practice your plan, you don't have a plan. And this includes how you're going to evacuate your house. But we'll talk about that a little more later. And I missed the Great Shakeout this year. I feel bad, but I was busy. And part of your plan, I hope by now you're all signed up for the Contra Costa warning system. Now things have changed. You used to have a caller ID of 000, but that came up spam. So now they have a new number. You can go on their website and check that you have everything right. And this is not Nixle or whatever Everbridge or whatever the new thing is. This is a totally different system, and you need to be. They're the ones that are going to tell you when you have to evacuate. So you absolutely have to be signed up with them, and you have to fix your phone so that it's coming up as an emergency contact. So if you have do not disturb on, or you turn your ringer off at night, it'll override that, and you will hear the evacuation order. Part of making a plan is knowing what the plan is when the time comes. So this is a emergency contact card, and you have in all that lovely stuff that we sent you today, a template for an emergency contact card. And I believe that sometimes paper is important. I mean, you can have this on your phone, you can have all this stuff on your phone, that's nice. But if you have a piece of paper, and I have several pieces of paper in various locations, so that I can get to my out of the area contact number and my meeting places if it's been 6 months or a year, and we talked about various places and we wrote one down, but then the time comes and my brain doesn't work. So having a card is really a good idea, and you should memorize the emergency contact phone number. It's my sister in my case, and sometimes I can remember her number. Be informed. Now we've got a kit and a plan, but we need to know how to get information. I have this lovely red radio, just like the one that's in the picture. You can get them at the Red Cross online store. You can get them various other places, but it's solar powered, it's crank powered, you can plug it in. It'll charge your cell phone. It's a very nice thing to have, and it has a really nice flashlight. I think it's a really good idea to have one of these because you want to be able to get the emergency stations and listen to the radio and find out what's going on, because a lot of other things may not be working. We found that out for sure with all those PSPSs that we don't have, we don't have electricity. We don't have a lot of other things too. Other ways of being informed, and CERT does a really good job of this, I think, is teaching people how to respond with first aid, CPR, earthquake safety, fire safety, all kinds of information that you've gotten from CERT to be able to plan ahead to figure out how you're going to respond in an emergency. Those of you who picked up water drums, I want you to know to look at your instruction sheet, because on the back of the instruction sheet is a lovely list of things to put in your kit. And I think that that's a very good starting place. So I already told you what emergency situations the Red Cross respond to most, and that is home fires. And home fire causes, well, most home fires start in the kitchen, but most deaths aren't caused by fires that start in the kitchen, because people are usually awake and they were cooking when the fire started, so they can do something about it, like leave or use their fire extinguisher. The thing with fires that start in the kitchen, it's often that people start something and they say, oh, I'm just going to run back and get something. It'll only take 2 seconds, and leave the grease heating up. And when they come back 2 minutes later, there's a lovely wall of flame going up the wall, and it's not very attractive. And so don't leave the kitchen when you're cooking with grease. If you're cooking a stew for 2 hours, obviously you're going to leave the kitchen, but that is not a real hazard. The second biggest cause of fires and the biggest cause of death is electrical issues, also arson, spontaneous combustion, which sounds weird, but it actually happens. And then smoking. Fortunately, in this area, smoking is not as big a problem as in other areas, but if you do smoke, realize that it's really seriously still a big cause of death. With the fire, some of the fires are caused by things like overloaded circuits, and my house, which was built in '69, certainly wasn't wired for the amount of electrical things that I have in my house. And so you need to feel cords and make sure they're not hot. If they're hot, you need to do something about it, because they can start a fire. Never put a cord under the rug, things like that. We'll talk about this stuff a little bit later. I have preceded myself by saying that stay in the kitchen when you're cooking. Never leave anything burning unattended, I hope not. Install fire extinguishers and keep an eye on what you fry. Okay, 3 feet from the heat. What we mean is if you have like space heaters, it's got cold, and sometimes people use space heaters to add to the warmth of their room, and they have curtains or fabrics on chairs or things. You absolutely must make sure that you don't have the fabric materials close to the heat, because they can just burst into flame. Make sure you use the cords safely. The one thing that's going to keep you alive at night if there's a fire is your smoke detectors. You need to check your smoke detectors. They are the most effective defense with a home fire. You need to have one at each level of your home, and in each bedroom or where anyone sleeps, and in the hallway to the bedrooms. I say where anyone sleeps. If you go to sleep in front of the TV, you need a smoke detector in that room, because if a fire starts in the house, you want that to wake you up. And you need to check them. The new ones are great because their batteries last for 10 years and you don't have to replace the battery. But you do need to test them every 6 months to make sure they're still working, because some of them have turned out to not be quite as good as anticipated. To evacuate from a fire, you need to have exit routes from every room, and you need to have those ahead of time. And if you have kids, you need to practice with your kids about what they're going to do. Also realize that if you have young children, they probably will not wake up when the smoke alarm goes off, even if it's in their room. They don't hear it. So you need to have a plan of how you're going to get your kids out, and we'll talk about that in a second. If you wake up in the middle of the night and your smoke detector is going off and you're laying there in bed, you don't stand up. Roll off the bed onto the floor and assess the situation. The smoke is up there and you're down here. You have a much better chance of getting out safely. The reason it says feel closed doors with the back of your hand for heat before you open the door is if you open that door, you're going to give the fire a lot more air and it's going to flash over you, and you're not going to be able to do anything to help anybody else. So if you're trying to get to your kids and you open that door, you won't be getting to them. Think about how you're going to get to them. If you have to go out your window and go around the house to get to them or whatever, but think about those things ahead of time, because when stuff happens, your brain stops working. I can guarantee it. It's happened to me. You need to have a plan that you can just say, this is what I'm going to do, and do it. If you can't get out, and this is something you should assess ahead of time, whether if you only have one way out of your room or you need to figure out what you're going to do. Close the door, put something under the door, and hang a cloth out the window so the firemen know that they need to rescue you. Yelling for help is also a good idea. The important thing is that this planning does for you is when something happens, you don't panic. Sometimes people panic and they just stop moving and they just stand there and wait for something awful to happen. If you have a plan, you're much more likely to be able to think through the issue and do something that gets you out of the problem. And once you're out, stay out. Don't run back in the house. Call 911. If you don't have your cell phone, go bang on your neighbor's door and get them to call 911. So let's talk about a couple other things that could happen. How about an earthquake? Well, with all the wildfires, it's hard to focus on the earthquake, but the earthquake doesn't have a season, and it could happen at any time. So here we are thinking about our earthquake. You should know how to turn off your utilities. Don't turn them off unless you smell gas, but you should know how to turn them off. If you have a generator, backup battery supply, or medical equipment, make sure that everybody in the family that's old enough knows how to use them. It doesn't do you any good to have any of these things if you don't know how to use them. Learn first aid and CPR. And your stay-at-home kit is going to look a lot different than your go bag. You have a lot of your stuff for a stay-at-home kit for 2 weeks just in your house. And if you gather all your camping gear and you gather all your supplies and you gather all the stuff you have in your big kit and put it in a place that you can easily get to it, even if you're having a hard time getting into your house, then you will be feeling much better until somebody comes to help. Or so we can get out of here, because we may not be able to drive out on the roads if we have a major earthquake here, and we may have to stay here. So if you have a nice tent, you may be camping in your yard, but you'll have your tent where it needs to be so that you can get to it. And then we have, of course, our go bag, and that's that we've talked about a little bit earlier, and as on the lists that there are there. And once again, a 1 month supply of prescriptions. Now, it may seem like I'm going over the same thing over and over again, but I'm going over the same thing over and over again, because you have to think about whether if I have to evacuate, what do I need? If I have to stay here, what do I need? All these things are important considerations. So what do you do during an earthquake? I hope all of you know what you're going to do. You're going to drop, cover, and hold on if you have the opportunity to get under something. So why do you get under something? Well, it's more likely that something's going to fall on you than that the building is going to collapse. If you look around, so go sit where you always sit after this presentation and look around and see what might fall on you. And I'm talking about pictures. If you have a picture hanging over your bed, go and take it down now, because if the picture falls on your head, it will hurt you, and you do not want to be a victim. If you're able to get underneath something, hang on to it, because it may be walking across the floor and you don't want that to happen. You want to be under it all the time. If you can't get under something, go into an interior corner. Don't go into a doorway, because nowadays doorways are not any stronger than any other part of the house. With the adobe buildings, they were stronger, and that's why they said go in a doorway. But now all that will happen is the door will hit you as it swings back and forth during the earthquake. Interior corner or wall because you don't want to be near any windows. And, you know, I say these things, but if it's a big earthquake, you're not going to be going anywhere. You want to get down. One of the reasons you want to get down is because you're going to fall down. It's better to get down than fall down. If you're in bed, you can put the covers and the pillow over your head, and if you've prepared your space so that nothing's going to fall on you, you're in good shape. And even if glass breaks or something else happens, the windows break, you're okay because you're covered up. I like the picture of the lady with the book over her head. She's locked her wheelchair. She can't get under the table, but she's covering her head and neck, and that's really important. Protect your head and neck. Your brain is very important to you, and you want to keep it safe. If you're in another country with unreinforced masonry buildings, you can run outside or whatever you want to do because those buildings collapse. But our buildings are, generally speaking, built to a good code and are unlikely to collapse. So you're much better off inside than outside. If you're in San Francisco and the earthquake starts, run inside because all that glass that's in all those high rises is going to be on top of you otherwise. If you're outside, get down. Stay away from buildings and trees and things that can fall on you. Open space is best. If you're in a car, pull over in an open space. Don't go under an overpass or something like that and stay in your car. It's a pretty good place if there's nothing to fall on you. After the earthquake, check yourself, check the other people, you know, get out that radio and listen for information. If your building's damaged, stay out of it and leave the area if you smell gas or chemical fumes. This is a place where if your home is damaged, you probably don't want to start out right away, but you probably do want to stay outside. And so you need to have thought about what you're going to do to keep yourself warm and dry outside if you have to stay there for a while. The reason I say you may not want to set out right away is you don't have any idea how the area is and what's going to happen. And if you can get some information before you set out, you may have a better chance of getting someplace without being electrocuted or hit by a tree or any of those other things. Well, we're now to wildfires. And all of you have had lots of experience with what's happened in other places in California with wildfires, and you've seen how fast they can go and how unpredictable they are. In the Oakland fire, the fire was across the 6-lane 24 freeway, or it's 8-lane anyway, the 24 freeway, and it was across 13 in half an hour. And besides that, flying embers were way out in front of the fire. We went through Rock Ridge on our way back up to our house because we had to ride up with the cops. And here's a house that's gone, here's a house that's there, here's a house that's gone, another house that's gone, and the house that's there. And a lot of that has to do with the embers that went out ahead of the fire. And when we have wind and hot weather and it's really dry, it's terrifying because you have such a short time to get out if you have to evacuate. So we can always leave ahead of time. You know, we have family members in El Cerrito, we can go visit them. We don't have to stay if we're very concerned about the fires. And you don't either. So fire watch, it means that fire weather conditions are possible in a few hours. As we know, a red flag warning means that fire could occur at any time. An extreme fire behavior alert, that means the wildfire is out of control and hopefully you've already evacuated. It's really kind of an interesting balance between being too paranoid and not being paranoid enough. So they want us to enhance our kits because of the smoke. Well, I think we've already enhanced our kits because we've had to have masks, and hopefully you have at least one N95 that you can use in the smoke situation. Think about your evacuation routes. Living in Moraga, at the end of the road, my evacuation routes are limited. So we need to be aware of what's going on and make sure that we have adequate time to leave. Meeting place if separated. This is really important. You can say, well, we'll meet at the Safeway in Lafayette, or if that's not safe, we'll meet at the Safeway in Walnut Creek. someplace where it's obvious what it is, and just make sure you all know where you're going, and then you can meet up. Because you may not be able to communicate on your cell phones. Their power may be out, the cell towers will be down. This happens all the time nowadays. And you want to have your radio so you can listen to updates and special instructions. If somebody in your household has access and functional needs, hopefully you have created a personal support network with your neighbors, practice with them, and have all the stuff that they need if they need medication or medical devices or anything. You'll have thought about that ahead of time and be in a place where you can help them. Be ready to evacuate. Now, I look at this picture and I think, be ready to evacuate. I've been gone. If I see that up on a hill behind my house, I'm not going to be ready to evacuate. I'm going to have checked my kit and I'm going to have left. What you do actually depends on how much time you have. If you have plenty of time, you can do things to protect your home. If you don't have time, you just leave. If you have your keys and your wallet, you're good to go. And it's nice if you can pick up your go bag on the way out. If you see a fire, dial 911 and leave immediately. That's all I could say. Know what to do when you're driving and when you're outdoors. When you're driving and outdoors, you're not supposed to drive through the smoke, because you don't know what's on the other side or what's in the smoke, but it's going to be, it's a tough situation. That's why you want to leave before you get into that situation. If you're driving, you keep the windows up and the vents closed, slowly and cautiously turn on your headlights. And if you're outdoors and you can't get out, you can get in a pool or a pond or a river. We don't have any rivers. We do have reservoirs, and we do have the golf course with ponds. If you're out there and there's nothing else to do, you lay flat and cover your body with soil, breathe close to the ground, and call 911 so they know where you were at the last moment. After the wildfire, now this is really important too. Watch for hazards, hot spots, and ash pits. Let other people know you're safe. Take care of yourself. It's very important, because you're going to be so stressed out that you just, whether your house is standing or your house is not standing, you're just going to be in a bad space. And only return home when authorities say it's safe. After the Oakland fire, all of the telephone poles, not all of them, but most of the telephone poles burned through. So the wires were on the ground in a big tangle. Some of them, you didn't know whether they were alive or not. And the telephone poles and the trees were all on the ground, what's left of them. And, you get there and you say, well, I think I'll just look through these ashes and see if I can find anything. Well, it turns out that what's in the ashes is all the knife blades and the nails and the sharps that were in the house. So we quickly decided that there wasn't anything there that we really needed that badly. But our neighbor, unfortunately, kept looking until he cut himself very badly and had to go to the hospital. So, think about how you're going to approach these things, and there's nothing there that you need. That's all I can say. Hope you never get into this situation. And one of the things that happens a long time after the fire sometimes is that these hot spots can flare up again if there's additional fuel. So you really need to be aware of what's going on around you, because you can be driving by a tree when it just flares up. Get ready beforehand. And the Arinda-Moraga Fire Department has made a huge effort to inform people about what's really going to cause a problem around their house, and to make rules so that in the future we'll have a more defensible space around our house. This says remove debris and flammable material within 200 feet of the home. Well, some of us don't have that much space around our home. You can use fire-resistant materials and plants, and you can install spark arresters and multi-pane windows. It says keep tools for firefighting. I'm not going to fight for my house. My house I'm more important than my house. And store water. The other thing you can do that would be really, it's really effective, is to look at your crawl space and attic vents and see and consider putting in materials in those vents that will stop the embers from coming into the house, because this is what really just burns down houses all by themselves, is the fire's not there, but the embers are there. They get in the crawl space or they get in the attic and they start a fire. And you can indeed remove brush and other flammable material away from your house. Things like juniper, rosemary, all these highly flammable bush plants don't have to be there. You can get rid of them. I felt bad about cutting my rosemary bush down, but I didn't need a huge bush of rosemary. What can you do today? Well, if you don't have a disaster kit, including 2 weeks of stuff for when you have to stay here for a couple weeks because of the earthquake, you can do that today. As I said, there's lists and there's there you can do it all. You don't have to do it all at once. You can put something on your shopping list every week that adds to your kit, and when you bring it home, you put it in your box. That's your kit. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can test your smoke alarms. You can practice for the earthquake with drop, cover, and hold on. You can share your preparedness knowledge with members of your household and your neighbors. You can talk to your neighbors and ask them what they're doing and ask, how can we work together to get this to be something that we can live through if we have to. You can practice your escape plan. I already said check your smoke alarms. How can you help your community? You can donate blood. We've had a real hard time with blood donations since COVID started, but they have a very safe system for blood donation. And if you can do it, I really urge you to do it. They won't take my blood because I was in the UK during mad cow, and those prions last forever, and they're never going to take my blood. You can volunteer with the Red Cross. Volunteer at redcross.org. You can sign up. I've had a good time with the Red Cross. It's not a perfect organization. No organization is, but they do a lot of good. And, even just the blood donation part, so many people are alive today because they figured out how to do plasma donation, how they figured out how to do whole blood donation. It's just been a lot of things happened during World War II that have made it so that we have a safe blood supply now, and one that we can use whenever we need it. And we have mobile apps. Just go on the App Store and type in Red Cross, and you can get one for emergencies, for first aid. The first aid one's pretty good. Pet first aid, all kinds of things. And if you're going to the Midwest, you can get one for tornadoes. It will tell you when the tornado is coming. It knows where you are. Or hurricanes, same thing. So that was my last slide, and I'm going to ask Julie if she can entertain some questions.
Hi, Diana. Thank you so much. This was really great and informative. I have a couple for you. One of them was on the last slide, the web page for to volunteer for Red Cross. Was that the correct website? Because it looked a little bit funny.
Well, let me get us up here. If I can get that one up. All right, slideshow. Let's go to the end.
There you go.
Well, that's volunteer Northern California coastal region, NCCR.
Great. That answers.
So that's our local chapter.
Perfect. Thank you. Another comment was you had mentioned that one of the options you have if you're stuck inside your home is to yell for help, which is definitely okay to do. A good suggestion would be to put a whistle in every room, since it's a lot easier to use a whistle than it is to scream for long periods of time.
Well, the whistle, I agree with the whistle. I have a whistle on each of my sets of car keys for a couple reasons, but one of them is if I'm trapped, I might have my car keys, and one in every room is good too. It's just something that is a lot, as you say, a lot easier to blow your whistle for a long period of time. And this works for, if there's an earthquake and things collapse as well. Hopefully, I really think the whistle is important on your car keys, because you have those with you a lot of the time, and so you have your whistle.
Excellent. And we got a question regarding the mobile hand crank radio flashlight that was shown in the slideshow. They're saying that it looks like it's discontinued.
Well, they have a new one that's, I think, $10 more than the old one was. But anyway, you can go on REI's website. You don't have to buy it from the Red Cross. You can buy it from various places. They can buy them from various places. I mean, I pushed the Red Cross first, but if you don't see it on their website, and if you go down on the website, I haven't been on it in a couple months, but if you keep going down, there are other options, I think. But I don't know, maybe that would be too bad if they just, I love that radio. I use it.
Yeah. The one that I have,
a disaster.
The one that I have, I think, is called the Snail on Amazon. I have that.
Amazon works too. I was just trying to shop locally.
Yes, that's good. Let's see, what else did I have? Oh, I wanted to mention that I am aware of one of the ways that in La Marinda that we're going to be able to get information is through a new radio station, an AM radio station that Lafayette PD, I believe, is going to be broadcasting on. I believe it is 1670 AM. So that's going to be a good channel for all of us. If you get that hand crank radio, you can tune into 1670 AM, and hopefully evacuations, and also, which is really important, is when to come back. They'll be putting that information out on a loop or something, or somebody will be saying something on that channel. So it's brand new. So Duncan, did you have anything else on that one?
Yes, the Lafayette, it's called a Traveler's Information System radio. It's a very low power AM station on 1670. It can be heard through most of Lafayette, Moraga, and Orinda. And it's on 24 hours a day. So anytime you want to, you can tune to 1670. Sometimes it gets overpowered by some radio stations. There's one in Reading and one in Merced, I think. There are Spanish language stations that are very powerful, and sometimes it blasts out the local, but it's a continuously transmitting local information station.
Great.
One other thing I want to mention is, Diana, you mentioned putting screens on your house to keep embers out. I've been talking to Chief Winokur, and we will be the area distributors in plan. Nothing is formal yet, but there is a new type of screen that's far better than just a half-inch or quarter-inch mesh. It's a screen that goes on your crawl space vents and your attic vents with a metal screen and a metal fabric behind it that effectively blocks out all the embers. So look for that. We will send out an email when we get that. We'll have several sizes when we figure out exactly what we're going to be doing with this, but hopefully we'll have it in the next month or so.
Right. And I do have a shameless plug for our La Marinda CERT Foundation sells these Baofeng radios, and they work even when the cell towers are down. So it's a lot of people are getting them. A lot of people are now tuning in. I'm happy to help anybody who wants to purchase one and who needs it programmed. Thank you. Jean has one there as well.
I have one.
Yeah, and Becky does. I mean, it's great. And you know, this is just a shameless plug that you can buy them elsewhere, but we do carry them, and I'm happy to program it with the local radio code plugs, and I'm happy to teach a class on Zoom to your neighborhood, or happy to help you as well. Just give me shoot me an email at registrar@lawmareindustert.org, and I will help you with that. That's the radio. And then my other shameless plug is that Duncan made these great signs to use if you do evacuate. So if you do have time, as you're evacuating and stocking your car with everything and taking one car for your whole family to leave, if you get an evacuation order or if you're concerned, you can stick this sign up, and then firefighters and first responders will know that you've evacuated and they won't need to check your house. However, if you're in a situation where you aren't able to evacuate, you can always put this, and hopefully you will become a priority if they see that sign. So Duncan has these as well. Duncan, do you want to expand on that? Is that through Minuteman Press still?
Yes, Minuteman Press still has them. I have a supply of a few hundred of them, but and there are a few stores in the area that have them. You can get them at Diablo Foods and at the Coop restaurant in Lafayette. I think Whole Foods still has them also. And there's no charge.
And we can also, it is on our, on the Lawmare Industert website. So if you just want to print it from your own home, you can just print it onto regular paper and use that. The ones that are available through Minuteman Press and around town are actually made with like a thicker coated paper. So they're a little bit hardier, but of course you can always make one yourself, copy it straight from the Lawmare Industert website, lawmareindustert.org.
The next issue of Lafayette Vistas, the newsletter that goes out to all Lafayette residents, will also have one in it.
Right. I think that's all of my shameless plugs for tonight.
Well, I appreciate everybody coming, and if 5 of you do something, I'll be very happy. If 10 of you do something, I'll be even happier, and if you all do something, I'll be really, really happy. Excuse me. Swallowed down the wrong throat.
Well, thank you, Diana, for presenting tonight. It was great information, and it's always good, even if it's something you've heard before, just to hear it again, and a great reminder to always get prepared.
Sorry about that. Well, you know, having gone through this myself, I know what we should have done beforehand and what we've done now to make it so that we'll be able to recover more easily. And that's part of it. First of all, you don't want to be dead. And second, you want to be able to recover without too much trauma.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Diana. As is our tradition at Lawmare Industert, we don't have a December meeting. That's the time when we're all available to go out and be with family and take trips and so forth. Hopefully we can take trips even with COVID, but we will not have a meeting in December, but hope to see you all on the second Monday of January. Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you for being here, and good night.